What's something you found out about your SO years into the relationship that made you reevaluate the whole relationship? A year in, I found out she lied to me about getting an STD test. Turned out she had more than one STD, which somehow I tested clean for. Luck, 999,999. When I had my first child, the pregnancy wasn't a surprise or an accident. We talked and planned. He got a little overbearing during the pregnancy, like insisting on breastfeeding without even discussing it with me. I put it down to new dad nerves and not knowing any better. Turns out that was only the tip of the iceberg. He believed that children were completely and totally a wife's responsibility. He wouldn't change a diaper. He wouldn't pick up the baby when it cried. No way would he get up in the middle of the night. He expected me to work a full-time job, plus do all the child care. At that point, I was confused and appalled, but I told myself he just needed time to adjust. I realized how delusional I was when the baby got sick while he was on a fishing trip. The doctors thought baby had meningitis, so not just sick, but life-threatening sick. I called and asked him to come home. He refused. He'd paid for 2 more days of fishing. He didn't want to lose the money. Whoa, what a douche rocket. She would lie about tiny, inconsequential things. Made me question my own perception of truth and self-instinct. Eventually caught her in a lie, and she denied even when presented with full proof. It wasn't something huge, but it was something that opened my eyes a little. My friend swears I was being gaslighted. Gaslit? Out of nowhere, a year into being married, he said he wants to join the Marine Corporation. He also wanted me to drop out of law school, birth babies, take care of his mother, and to run a household all while he's deployed. Hard pass. I've been in the military for 8 years. The amount of people I've seen ask their SO to do this is astonishing. But I get it. I can't keep a relationship because I move every 2 years and deploy 6 months out of almost every year. 7 years in, after having been married a year, my husband finally told me he was raped as a child for 6 years by his older brother. It really threw the struggles of our sex life into perspective. Now knowing this, I have done all kinds of research, found how to support rape victims info, and I've changed how I behave sexually. We're working on it. I tell him every time we're intimate that sex is an act of love, and he's safe with me. And we have our safe word for general use if he's feeling overwhelmed. We're really making progress, I think. Things are better now. He's starting to understand that sex equals love in our marriage, and I want him to want me, and I want him to be a little controlling when he feels up to it, etc. He's grown a lot. He's a very strong person and I'm immeasurably lucky to have him. He is lucky to have you as well. It's great that you have done research and are so supportive. I realized he would always blame me for his angry outbursts and mistakes. He punched a wall and screamed about a homework assignment he didn't understand because I was sitting on the couch quietly. Then after he was finished blaming me and realized I was upset, he became all sad and wanted me to comfort him. What a pathetic human being. I'm glad I've grown past accepting that sort of behavior. That my husband wanted to start fires and kill police officers, and was planning on framing me for it so his girlfriend could move in while I did his time in prison for him. Damn, that is cold. Sorry to hear. We were driving home from a dinner in which we drove separately to, and without knowing it she cut me off by merging into my lane last minute without using a blinker. I was annoyed at first, but when I recognized it was her car it made me feel very strange. This is kind of like when you go for a run in your local park and bump into your cat and you're both a bit awkward about it. My now wife and I both love musicals. Whenever we're in NYC, we catch a Broadway show. If a good show tours to our city, we catch it. On one date I offhandedly told a story about when I performed Wizard of Oz in high school and she froze, eyes wide. You performed in musicals? Yeah, oh, I had no idea. This will take me a while to process. She was pretty quiet for about 20 minutes, then said okay, that's fine. I just never knew I was dating a guy who was in musicals. Never figured out why it threw her so much, but that was that and it never bothered her again. This is the strangest one of the thread. He lied about where he went to undergrad. I suspected it while the relationship was still going on. but after he moved out I found some of the stuff he left that included transcripts from a different university than he'd claimed. It wasn't even in the same country. I'm fairly sure most of the stories he told about his childhood were lies. My ex-husband confessed to me that he sexually abused his younger brothers. ETA. He was also a child, under 10, when he did it. He didn't understand it and probably was a victim of sexual abuse himself, although he did not remember, or just didn't want to tell me. We are divorced for unrelated reasons, but learning this gave me a different perspective on his personality and behaviors. 9 months into the relationship I found out he had a court date. He told me it was for assaulting a bouncer. Very soon after, his mother admitted that he has a court date for assaulting his underage relative. When I confronted him he said that the underage girl raped him. When I told him he was full of S, he said, "Okay, she gave me a BJ." Soon after, I went into his lawyer's office with him and read the transcript. It turns out he raped his underage niece twice, and just tells a different lie to anyone who asks him why he's in jail. Total piece of S. I ran very fast, haven't seen him since, and hope I will never see him again. That she had been in contact with her exes, met them and regularly cheated on me with just whomever. 8 years. She was really good at hiding her tracks. I only found out because I contracted a STD, curable, fortunately, from her. I was really glad we didn't have kids and divorced her, moved away, and drank too much. Then I met the most awesome person in the world who I married, had kids and didn't know relationships could be this good. Similar thing happened to me with so of nearly 12 years, except it was co-workers and acquaintances. Found out the same way as you, but treatable not curable. Been single nearly 2 years now, haven't been able to really let anyone get close since. Found his hidden folder on his phone. Blackmailed girls for nudes and stole nudes from girls. Pretended to be someone else and sexted his sister without her knowing it was him. Constantly made me feel like I was crazy or overreacting. Also realized what him calling me a manic pixie dream girl meant. Why is no one talking about him sexting his sister? I've always wanted kids, but I've always been nervous about the idea. Like, when do I do it? What if I'm bad at it? Will I miss my freedom? 3 years into my relationship with my fiance, we were at a cookout and there was a little 7-year-old girl there. He was running around playing with her, being goofy, playing tag, and he was just so good with her. It occurred to me I had never seen him interact with a child before. He lit up in such an amazing way, and that's when I realized I absolutely want to have kids with this dude. Turned out my husband, who was sober from drugs and alcohol, had been using C monthly for the last 15 years. Just enough to maintain apparently. We have worked it out, but I was almost gone at that point. I'd be inclined to say if he's been doing it for 15 years at that rate, then he's a very responsible drug user. He likes the middle brownies and I like the edges. That was when I realized we were meant to be. No, seriously, I felt complete at that moment. Jack Sprat could eat no fat, his wife could eat no lean, and so between the two of them, they licked the platter clean. He hid a few Xanax addictions withdrawals, forgave him. He stole $4,000 from our joint savings that only I contributed to, forgave him. He sexted and was trying to meet up with Randus, which made me realize I should probably leave. But the thing that made me certain was when I realized he didn't actually want an equal relationship. He expected me to shop, cook, clean, and be responsible for him for the rest of our lives. He pretended to want what I wanted for years, and I was dumb enough to believe his excuses on why he just couldn't do it yet. I demand and deserve a reasonably equal relationship. Divorce was one of the best things I ever did. Our joint savings that only I contributed to. That's not how joint savings accounts work. That she wants to have fights and be mad. For example, we currently haven't spoken for 3 days, and she's sleeping in the other room because I accidentally text good night, sleep tight, instead of just good night, because I was the one going to bed, not her. So in her mind, that text must have been meant for another woman. We live together, we work together, we share a car. How on God's green earth could I have a side chick? She told me when we first met that she was broken as she suffers from depression. I didn't brush it off, so to speak, but kinda just thought, Yeah, whatever, it won't be that bad. It's not because I don't think depression is serious, but I just had never ever been in contact with someone with depression, so I kinda had no idea what it entails, if that makes sense. 5.5 years of being together later and holy crap, cow frick. Depression is just super freaking serious. I've been in scenarios I never imagined being in because of her and her depression. She's phoned me up twice while she was working in London. I live 60 miles away in Kent, saying she loves me and she's sorry and she's gonna end it. WTF do I do? I didn't know what to freaking do. Thankfully, both of those times, she never went ahead with it but still ended up in hospital, and obviously I went up to her. Sometimes she's just crying and crying and crying and crying. Countless visits to the GP for talks and medication. Again, things I've never dealt with before, and at first I was extremely uncomfortable about it all. This isn't for me kinda crap, but the good news is, she's part of my life now. I don't mind all of the above anymore. She loves me and I love her. What's even more amazing is that I'm the one that keeps her going, she says. This is life. I'm fully aware of the seriousness of depression. It's impossible to explain to other people. It's literally impossible. Good on you for sticking through it. I hope you're doing okay, though. People with depression can sometimes take endlessly without giving back, and they don't mean to. Make sure you look after yourself. She just recently got diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Made me look back, realize a lot of her actions and anger stemmed from that. She just started mood stabilizers and has found a great therapist to help her work through everything. But it would have almost been a deal breaker if she didn't try to actively manage it. 1 year in, found out his ex-girlfriend was actually still his girlfriend. We broke up with him together and became great friends. He started hearing voices. We've been together since we were 11. We've experienced everything together. I love and accept everything about him. Shortly after moving in with each other, he broke down. He told me that he can't stand hearing voices anymore. I helped him see a doctor about it. They evaluated him and diagnosed him with stress. In his words, he is pretty freaking stressed about hearing voices. After a while, he starts admitting to me that he's terrified of mirrors. Why? Because the people on the inside will take him away. We go back to the doctor. Again, they tell him you don't want to be diagnosed with something bad. It's just stress. Nothing left to do than keep bringing him back until they believe him. Doesn't help that now he's convinced the doctors don't want him to get help. Can't really blame him for that. It was hard to adapt at first. I would never have pictured him to have been going through such internal pain. The one thing that stood out to me, he had spent so many years building my mental health up and doing anything he could to bring me out of depression. I had been so selfish for so long. How could I have not realized something was wrong? I was supposed to be the one person who knew him the most. Our relationship was unbalanced, and it was time for me to start picking up the slack. Ironically enough, we have an even stronger and healthier bond now. Speaking as a doctor myself, you have some really bad doctors. Take him to a psychiatrist immediately. She lied to me, or rather, flat out denied telling me that she has herpes. Guess who has herpes now? Her reasoning: I thought you wouldn't talk to me if you found out I had it. I would have kept talking to her. Perhaps I wouldn't have raw dogged her pee with my face and dong so soon. Just freaking disclose that information at the start. Don't be embarrassed. WHO gives someone an STD knowingly. I wish there was a way to make the word knowingly like 10 times bigger. She knew what she was doing. 7 years in, I found out he was a high school dropout without even a GED. He had initially told me he was a game design major and turned down a job opportunity or internship. I can't recall which, with a Toronto, because he didn't want to leave me. I literally told him, go, we can figure other crap out later. This won't wait. I should have known then. Ugh. Love is blind, but only for so long. Should have broken up with him when he said yay. Turns out when she said she wanted to get married, she actually meant that she just wanted to get married. By which I mean wanting to get married is not the same thing as wanting to marry me. I just happened to be the guy she was with at the time when her friends getting married was making her jealous, and her mother was also putting pressure on her to get married. When I told her about my abused childhood, she got angry, but not at me, which was new. She hates my family so much. She's always ready to throw down if my dad says or does something bad, and he's about a foot taller than her. I married her. A little over a year after being officially together, I finally put together that they had a cancer gene in their family. Despite being crazy in love with her, this made me want to back out, because I totally saw a future with her. Her grandpa and dad both had head and neck cancers. 2 aunts and 1 uncle were survivors of ovarian and lung cancer. I knew I wanted kids and she did too, so there was always this looming fear that our future kids might get it. Still went through because she mattered more to me than all my fears combined. Life plays a cruel joke, and despite having no vices and being an occasional drinker, she got the big C as well. Head and neck just like grandpa and her dad. Lost her a little over a year ago. Still, no regrets. Still love her a lot. I'm so sorry for your loss. I don't want to sound cliche, but I'm glad you got the time with her. I hope you are doing well. My wife and I married quickly without getting to know each other much. She was raised in a Mormon home and I had converted to Mormonism at 18. We played the roles of provider and nurturer in our marriage according to the teachings of the faith. I left the faith about 6 years ago. She stopped attending about 2-3 years ago. The very difficult conversations when I left made us talk about things more than we ever had before. We dove deeply into so many aspects of our life, marriage, and desires for the future. I realized, after years of marriage, that she was actually an incredibly smart, dynamic woman. I loved her a lot before this. I always thought she was amazing. But because of the dynamics of each of our upbringings, and the dynamic of the faith, I never realized how intelligent she was. I ask her opinion on things all the time now. We left our faith, ditched most of our baggage from our sexist upbringings, and I realized how great of a lifelong companion I have, and I am ecstatic about it. This is amazing. Fellow Exmo here, good on you for leaving and recognizing who your wife is as a person. That he had been cheating on me and racking up debt. We had gotten married and made life plans that he had always known would never come to fruition because of what he was doing behind closed doors. Yet, he allowed me to marry him anyway, knowing I was signing up for a life I did not want and that we did not agree on. I would have been the one to bear the brunt of the consequences for his actions. 5 years together. By Felipe. I'm not sure if that's his actual name, or a male version of by Felicia, but either way I now have a new phrase in my vocabulary. He told me from the very get-go that he was diagnosed as Asperger's in grade school, but I just brushed it off because I know many people who half-heartedly claim to be autistic. But a couple weeks ago I was lying in bed while he was putting away one of his 50 pocket watches in his holding box that he keeps in pristine condition tucked away in his sock drawer. Then he proceeded to pick out a new X to carry in his backpack full of supplies, and for some reason it just hit me for the first true time that he is totally 100% on the spectrum. And it made me think back to the times when he has done things that absolutely infuriate me and he has no idea he has done something wrong, and suddenly I could see that he wasn't being manipulative or underhanded. His brain simply works in a different way than mine. And he even tried to warn me of this. I just for some reason chose to disregard the information. He is super willing to meet me halfway, even when he doesn't understand why something bothers me. He acknowledges how I feel and he stops doing it. He is the goofiest, most eccentric ball of love I have ever met, and coming to terms with his autism has made me love him all that much more. He was always very secretive and a little paranoid. One example, I learned about 15 years into the relationship that his birthday is not in May like he said, but in November. When he moved to the US from England in the 1970s, they had written it down incorrectly in his passport and he never changed it to his correct birth date. I still don't know why. Let me start by stating my wife has Asperger's. She didn't even know until we were married we tackled it together. That wasn't what really shook me. 7 years into our marriage, a random conversation leads to her revealing she's never felt anything when we kiss, but she went along with it because she knew the importance of it as a romantic gesture. WTF, I'm flabbergasted as our first kiss had left my lips tingling. To me it was more than just the act. It was a genuine chemistry between us, but with her Asperger she couldn't process it that way. Hearing she went along with it because she knew it was supposed to mean something just broke my heart. Every single kiss suddenly felt like a lie and I started questioning whether she actually loved me. It took months of therapy to reconcile and reassurances she did feel love. It wasn't something she was assuming she should feel for me. It's been 4 years now and we're still together. I came to accept she just doesn't process our kisses the same way. Think of it this way, if she didn't feel anything when you kissed, she would need motivation to do it. You are that motivation. Even though she doesn't have a reason to, she still kisses you, probably because she loves you. When an old ex got mad at me and raised their voice, I would get scared. I confessed this outside of an argument and she looked puzzled and said something like, "But you're a big strong man. How can that scare you?" I'm glad she's your ex. Emotional distress is real, traumatic, and you don't have to deal with it. It was my girlfriend of 2 years last night in town before leaving for college. She told me she was hanging out with her friends, which I was fine with as we had planned to see each other every weekend. Turns out she didn't see her friends. She hung out with her ex-boyfriend and then left for school the next day and didn't answer her phone for a week. First time I talked to her after she left, she told me what she did and broke up with me. There's a ton of things that I discovered over the years we were together, but the biggest one was how he had lied about his exes. He talked terribly about them and would make them all sound like cheaters and liars or just plain psychopathic. It turns out, that's not the truth at all. They were none of those things and I found out the hard way that it was him that embodied those qualities all along. We have broken up and gotten back together many times over the past 6 years, but it ended for the last time this weekend. If someone insists that every one of their exes was a psycho, odds are that the problem is not with the exes. That he didn't actually want to have a child with me. Wish I knew that before we got married. My girlfriend's old friend and her husband compromised. He wants 4 kids, she wants none, so they are going to have 2. You can't freaking compromise on that. It's one of the few things in life that is always black and white. She is perfectly okay flipping out on the kids. I mean full on cussing them out and yelling about stuff. I ultimately confronted her about it and she said, "So everyone else is allowed to express themselves when they are upset, but not me?" We had to have a luo talk after that one. This is so bad. My son just married a really nice girl who has abusive parents. The kids moved in with us. We have to be careful about getting angry and yelling. Even if it's just like, "I can't open this stupid jar because she will cry and shake like a frightened animal." Frick those mean people. Her walls were just too high to ever get through. Intimacy, affection, emotion, romance, all gone and she was unwilling to change. Dealing with that myself, currently. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.